Hi everyone. Today I want to discuss some recent insights I've had into the nature of addiction. I've been watching some YouTube videos about dopamine detox recently. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical in our brain. I believe it's responsible for the sensation of pleasure, but it's mostly responsible for motivation. The dopamine detox videos, the gist of what they're trying to say is we need to remove ourselves from having too much stimulation in order to come back to feeling content and satisfied with life without constantly needing a pleasure fix or this dopamine neurotransmitter fix. One of the things they talk about in these dopamine detox videos are some lab studies that were done with lab rats. What they did with the lab rats was they hooked up some kind of electrode to their brain which could trigger the release of dopamine in their brain, and then they gave the rats a button they could push which would cause this release of dopamine. What they found was that the rats stopped doing anything else in their life. They didn't even bother eating. All they wanted to do was sit and push that dopamine button. Okay? This is very important stuff. Once you start to see what the rat's doing, you can maybe start to see that you're doing the same thing as the rat on many different levels. At least I saw that with me, and I start to see it with other humans too. So the rat's just sitting there punching the dopamine button and no longer cares about anything else, not even eating. There's other studies where the rat has to cross a very painful electric shock area to get to the button or to get to food, etc. The rat will not cross the painful area for anything except for that button. That dopamine button, the rat will cross that area to go press that button. So, just want to show you how wired we are to want that dopamine, that we'll do things even painful. I mean, the rat will, and we're no different than the rat. We'll go through all kinds of painful things in order to chase the dragon of dopamine, what we think will give us a fix. And oftentimes what I find is the dopamine trigger, the button, it may no longer trigger dopamine in our brain, but we as humans have got it in our memory that that button will produce the dopamine, and so we get like attached to that button, and we want to keep going back to that button and romanticizing that button long after the button no longer produces dopamine in us anymore. The rats are probably much smarter. There was a book called Who Moved My Cheese about this, that the rats were in the maze and someone moved a cheese and the rats just immediately started looking somewhere else, whereas the humans always came back to the same place where the cheese had been before and just refused to look anywhere else because they're just set on their memory. That's where the cheese once was. That's where the dopamine fix once was. I've got to return there. So, what do I see with all this? So yeah, with myself, I know I've been addicted to multiple substances and behaviors in life. I believe I'm a sexual addict. Let's see, I've been addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana. When I say addicted, what I mean is I don't want anyone taking away that dopamine button from me, and if somebody tries to get in the way of that dopamine button, they're out, right? That is the thing that I'm going to protect. So for me, like marijuana is a dopamine button. It is, do not come between me and that dopamine button. But I'm also thinking back about, when I think about ex-girlfriends in my mind, and I miss them and I romanticize about how wonderful they were to be with, what I'm really doing is romanticizing a dopamine trigger. Those people in my life, the activities that we did, some sexual, some other, other things produced pleasure highs, not just dopamine. There's also oxytocin, which is another neurotransmitter responsible for trust and love. But anyway, it's amazing to me. I finally sort of recognize this, that, when I'm looking at women especially and desiring them, what I'm really looking at is a dopamine button. And I'm wanting that dopamine button to be, I'm wanting to control it and have it whenever I want it. And say if a girl's not interested in me or, seems to reject me or something, it feels like I'm losing that dopamine button, and that's really what's bothering me. It's not really the rejection or the girl or, anything like that. In fact, it's so bad that it's like I think of like women as on another team, and like I'm playing against them almost, and having connection with them is like I'm trying to steal the ball from them or score the goal on them against them. And I've only kind of recently realized why have I had this thinking? Like, women are on my team. We're all on the same team. All men, all women, we're all on the same team. We're all playing together. And we're all trying to basically enjoy the game, really. And if someone doesn't pass me the ball to score, I should be happy that they kept the ball and scored themselves. Or maybe they passed to a teammate who was open and they scored. Instead of me being frustrated, you should have passed me the ball. But that's because the ball, this figurative ball, is my dopamine fix. And if someone doesn't give it to me, then I'm angry at them. You've got in the way of my dopamine fix, and so I can blame them for not giving me what I think I need or want, which is really this dopamine fix. So I just think it's really funny now that I kind of realize this, that all our poems and odes and all the stuff that we write, romantic stuff, is really romancing this dopamine trigger. And I think it'd be really funny to hear poems or songs written about the beauty and marvelousness of this fantastic dopamine trigger. I love your red button, you're so divine and you're so beautiful, so lovely. Touching you, stroking you makes me just feel amazing. And that's all about my dopamine button. So I hope you guys are getting something out of this and realizing that some of the things that you're addicted to, whether it's sugar, I think was for me the very first dopamine trigger that I became addicted to as a child, and would drink soda. I could drink the 12-pack of soda in a day when I was in high school. I could drink a 2-liter of soda on the way home from 7-Eleven to the house. In a mile drive in the car, I could drink a 2-liter. I remember when I was like 10 years old. So sugar was definitely the first dopamine trigger that I went to when I needed to pick me up, when I needed to feel good. And that sugar, let's say addiction to sugar, eventually became addiction to alcohol and other things. Let's see. If you've been watching me, you know that I'm addicted, or was addicted, to Masters of the Universe figures, buying those. So that it's the same thing. These figures are just pieces of plastic, but getting them makes me feel like I found something. It triggers the dopamine. I guess it would be like a human being finding a fruit tree back in the evolutionary times, and oh my goodness, look at this this wonderful thing that's going to provide survival for me. I should be glad that I found it. Well, for us, it's all confused. The stories are so confused that I can turn finding a piece of plastic figure into a dopamine button, a dopamine trigger, and feel good about it, and want to push that button again. Get me another figure, and that kind of thing. So I know you all are well aware of this, or not as aware of it. Doesn't really matter. But what it is that when we're unhappy in life and we're always needing, we're always looking for something else to make us happy, or we're blaming somebody else for not making us happy, maybe just take a step back and realize our behavior is like that of the rat with that little dopamine button, and we just want to keep pushing it and pushing it, and don't get in the way of me and my precious dopamine button. Get out of my way. Don't take it away from me. That's what we're doing. And I don't know what more to say about it, other than hopefully we recognize that's what's happening and we can let it go and just say, hey, I don't have to keep pushing that button to make me happy. And it will. I feel very irritable when I'm not pressing my dopamine button constantly. I'm just so used to having a button to push, and if I stop pushing it for a couple hours, I get irritable. That involves using marijuana right now, or YouTube. If I'm not pushing that YouTube button and checking the next video and looking for the next video, or reading comments while I'm watching a video, I'm always looking for the next button to push. It's just never satisfying, and you're looking for the next one and the next one. Like I said, the dopamine button doesn't even have to give you dopamine anymore. It's that it once did, and you'll keep going back to it, even though it no longer does. I think that's with porn, YouTube, a lot of these things. You realize it doesn't serve you anymore, but you keep going back to it. Like in my brain now, I haven't had a cigarette in over a year, and somehow I could still romanticize them and think there's something nice about them or good about them. If I really try hard, I can kind of remember, with the end stages of smoking, there was no pleasure in it. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't pleasurable, but it was meeting that dopamine fix would kind of just let that go away. But anyway, yeah, so now, you know, a year after quitting, the romance still comes back and says, oh, but those things were so beautiful, lovely, you know, that kind of thing. So like I said, same thing with ex-girlfriends, and, you know, oh, what a great dopamine trigger she once was. So I can romanticize about that in my mind, and wouldn't it be so great to have her back again, kind of thing, or having a new girl that's a dopamine trigger. So I sure hope I can let go of all this stuff, or, you know, find a simple dopamine trigger like the rats have, that I can just sit here and push the button, and I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to go chasing anything else. I can just bliss out on my dopamine button. And then I would no longer, you know, have stories in my mind about, you know, I need such and such to make me happy. I need the next toy. I need, you know, I need a relationship, whatever it is. So, thanks y'all for joining me again in a conversation about my random thoughts. I don't know how to end it. Take care. Bye, everybody.